Hello everyone, Richard Carlton here. Welcome. I'm going to make a couple adjustments in flight and we are rocking and rolling. Welcome to another awesome day. We're going to be doing FileMaker training here at fmtraining.tv, your source for great FileMaker training content, video courses, and lots of learning. In fact, we do so much learning that we do an hour every day from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock Pacific time, and that's Monday through Friday. So every day we have different topics of things that we're doing. So we talked to Tony White. Tony White is an interesting guy. So I'm going to dive into the Tony White conversation a little bit. And Tony White's an interesting guy. He's really, it's kind of like, it's something that you notice in the FileMaker community. You really have kind of like these East Coast developers, and then you have like the West Coast developers. And because of the geography of the United States, and really you have the European developers too. And the groups talk to each other, obviously, but when they get together and go drinking and socialize, really the Easties hang out with the Easties and the Westies hang with the Westies. And so Tony is a guy I only see at DEF CON. I don't talk to him that often. But every time I see him at DEF CON, he has some sort of awesome resource tool for me. And I'm always like, man, that guy creates really awesome content, and we should tell people about it. And of course, until we started doing the live training every day, right? We really didn't have a good platform for that. So this allows us to dive in and have some days where we explore people in the FileMaker community who are doing really great stuff. And then it's not that there's not a lot of people doing great stuff, but I have people doing great stuff that they're giving away for free. So once again, per the conversation yesterday, for those of you who heard me, someone asked about a certain product from a certain company, and I said I don't use it because, and if I don't use it, I don't provide training on it, right? So, and so, you know, we use a FileMaker platform. But there are products out there that I'm not using yet, so we don't have training on it. Why don't I use it yet? Because it doesn't work, or it's got bugs, or whatever the issue is. So, so Tony is the same way. I use Tony's stuff. Tony's big handicap is that he's like a team of 1 or 2 or 3 people, whatever. I think the size of his team kind of varies, but he's really small. So he does a tremendous amount for a small developer. And so let's dive over into that, Miles. Have you seen some of Tony's stuff before, Miles?
Just in looking it up, I heard we were looking at some of his stuff, so I actually was browsing through it this morning.
Okay, great. Yeah. So basically, this is Tony's site. Tony's from New York, and this is his website. It's called TW Designs. And what he does is the part that really got my original attention was he creates these infographics, right? And the infographics, basically, I'm going to go ahead and move myself out of the way for a second. I'm going to re-show. I periodically will hide and show the icons on my desktop, but I try not to confuse people. But like, there's these PDFs over here you can download for free. These PDFs are really amazing. So if I open up this JSON PDF, this is a technical PDF. Let me move these other ones over here real quick. So I have all these. The JSON one, too. Put that up there. And he creates these PDFs that are really fantastic. And I'm going to kind of zoom in on it a little bit. And so I'm not going to do deep dives into this tech, because if we were going to learn about JSON, that's a multi-day effort, right? But he does this great document that helps you learn this, right? It helps, frankly, me learn things. It also presents it in a different way. So sometimes, like I was going through some of his material today, kind of prepping for the broadcast, and some of it resonates with me and some of it doesn't. And I think like anything else in life, if you want to learn about a platform or a product, like, for example, change subjects, but it's the same thing. So I'm off. I've been a pilot for many, many years. And so I can remember going back and working with instructors, and I would work with one instructor, and they'd be really good about teaching me stuff, but then they would tell me things I wouldn't get or I wouldn't understand, because the way they describe it or the way they demonstrate it as you're flying doesn't resonate with you. So no one instructor is perfect, right? And so the idea is that they would realize I'm stuck, so they would put me in the plane with a different instructor, right? And that other instructor would present the material differently from their perspective, and you'd be like, oh, I get it. I totally get it. So I like Tony because it provides an alternate training area. Now, his philosophy on life and the philosophy on building FileMaker apps is probably different than mine, because mine is totally about training. Tony does training type things as a peripheral thing to his main business, which is where he does consulting, right? For me, all I do is training. I run a company, I do training. I don't build apps anymore, except in so much as I'm building for myself or something small, or it's a demo, right? I don't build giant projects like for Apple, right? We have engineers that work for Apple and doing projects for them. We also have projects for little people. I don't build those anymore, right? And so my job is purely training. So, but he is bringing, he's like a kind of like a part-time instructor. He brings this information. I think it's really valuable. So, so that is, if you're learning about JSON, it's a really good one right there. He also has one on FileMaker Cards. The cards were created in FileMaker 16. We covered these at a lot of length in a video, in a webinar, and Miles will do me a favor and put that on here. It's the Vimeo link to the dynamic window control session where we talked about how to control windows and things like that. Cards, some of the things that you can do, with the FileMaker interface really only applies to Pro. It doesn't translate well to Go and to WebDirect. We covered that in that session. That's because those other clients are single document interfaces. And if you don't know what that is, then watch the training or make sure that you have our FileMaker 19 training when it comes out, which means you have to have a subscription to our training. But we cover that, and we've kind of gone back and reshot some things and made some things better. But a card style window is a modern creation by the folks at Claris, and it works actually with Pro, Go, and WebDirect. It works with WebDirect in 19. It doesn't work in there today, but if you want to wait a month and then install 19 or whenever it comes out, sometime in May, then from what I understand and from what FileMaker is saying publicly, frankly, it will work there. So it works all the way across. So popover windows, the little popover objects work all the way across. Card style windows work all the way across. Tab controls and slide controls work all the way across. All the clients, right? So very important. So this is a great one about that. Understand this was written for 16. I really, deep down in my heart, wish he would update these, but he's got a tiny team and he's got to spend most of the time making money. So in my world, one of the biggest challenges I have is to update the training and keep it up to date. And so it's not really stale at any point. That's really hard for most people. In fact, FileMaker can't even really do that. Claris, they have their training budget for training people is smaller than my budget. I have dedicated 3 video producers, a video manager, and myself. That's really 5 people that are dedicated to that. Claris doesn't have that. They do training incrementally, randomly during the year, right? And so even they have the same problem of trying to keep the content when they change a product, keeping it up to date, right? In fact, what they frequently do is instead of updating it, they just delete it or remove the references to it, right? You'll see that with YouTube videos. You'll see YouTube videos where it'll be some content they had, but then somehow it's slightly out of date. Instead of reshooting it, which is what I do, they actually just get rid of it because it's easier just to kill the reference than to create a budget and a team to do it. So this is the card style windows right here. Very awesome. I like this a lot. You will learn a ton right here with this one right. So this is his list of topics that he has. The iBeacon one is probably the one that he tried. It's in my opinion the least useful, and it's not his fault. But I talked about iBeacons yesterday. iBeacon is a technology that just never was awesome. It's not reliable enough. Not that his document here isn't great, but you just don't see it being adopted. In fact, my guess is that there's a replacement technology that'll be out there that'll work better. Whether they still call it, because iBeacon's kind of this generic term for this open source stuff. I think it's Apple's. I don't think it's Apple's terminology for it, but it never quite took off. And once again, yesterday we talked about the idea as you walk through a store, the store can tell who you are based upon your phone or whatever, and it puts ads up on flat panels next to you for things that you would like, right? Say that you really love broccoli, right? And then you would get an ad for broccoli, right? One time I said in an email, I love white powdered donuts. It's like the one thing I love. I can't have them, but I love them. And Google, despite what they say that they don't read their email, their Gmail, they read my email. I started getting ads for white powdered donuts, okay? Not because I searched for it. I never have in a million years thought of searching for white powdered donut on the internet, but I started getting ads for Dolly Madison, right? That's because they're tracking you and they know what you love, right? And so iBeacons is that idea, but as you're walking through the store, they can project those ads. Also, if you're doing an inventory in a warehouse, it can alert you to what's around you, things like that. The problem is the technology is just sketchy. It just doesn't work reliably. FileMaker tried really hard to make it work at a couple dev cons, and it wasn't even their fault. It's just the underlying radio broadcasts and the way the radio technology is set up. It's just, at least in a lot of environments, it's not reliable. So that has to be better for it to really be useful. So that's the iBeacon one. Of course, there's this FileMaker 14.1, I'm going to shelve that for now. I'm going to come down to this URL protocol one. This one is super, super valuable. I'm going to pop it right here. This is the actual document. And this talks about what is URL protocol. It doesn't really frame it as to why you would use it. That's kind of where we come in our training, why you use it and what situations you use it. Once again, it was developed way back in the day, and he's updated it through FileMaker 13. This changed. There's some changes that would go on to this, starting with FileMaker 18. There's the FMP URL protocol is still there, but now there's also an FMP 1.8 URL protocol. So each release will have its own URL protocol. It should. I haven't verified that's in 19, but I hope it is. The URL protocol, what it is, you can target specific versions of FileMaker. So it's how you do two-way communication from a web viewer. So web viewer generally in the current release of the product cannot talk. If you have like interaction in the calendar, like our calendar kit or in a web viewer, you cannot have it where it talks back to FileMaker. You have to use the URL protocol to move the data back, right? In fact, do I still have that chart demo? This is a great example of this. All right, so we were showing this off the other day. This is a image that you put on your screen, and then we press this button right here, and it pops up a web viewer. This is not really FileMaker. This is a web browser in FileMaker, and then this is dynamic JavaScript that's running around in here. And when I identify the coordinates of here to crop this image, say I want the kitty's head right here, right? I hit save. At this point, it's going to send a URL protocol to the operating system. The operating system will say FMP whatever on it, and it directs the traffic back to FileMaker. So FileMaker, the web viewer here, is going to go out the OS, say, hey, I need to talk to FileMaker, and then FileMaker, the operating system is going to direct the traffic back to FileMaker. That's what the URL protocol is. And so you hit save, and it actually does it. It worked pretty good. It is kind of fragile sometimes. So they're trying to address this in FileMaker 19 as well. That's why FileMaker 19 is such a great release, awesome release. It really solves some important problems. It's probably the biggest release since like 15 or 16. I really believe that. So that's URL protocol. Now, you still need to know about it because there'll be other times you need to use it. But this document gives you a really good idea of how it's structured. And for the most part, it's accurate. Just keep in mind it's a little bit out of date. Miles, what do you think about that? You've used these PDFs before?
Yeah, I was looking over in the he has a products freebie section. So I was kind of diving into those. Kind of like you said, some of it's maybe based on an older example, but it's still useful or still good ideas that you can use as is, or even just update with some newer code today.
Yeah, I asked him about this, and he said, well, I'm not really putting the time into this, but what he is doing, he's doing these little, I call them little nuggets of knowledge. Whenever I say a little nugget of knowledge, it's not like a complete topic. It's just like this little thing. And so he has this page, if you come over here, Miles, if you want to give this to people, but it's basically the idea that it's his tweet feed on his website. And the idea is that this is a mishmash of topics. And I wanted to bring something up real quick for those of you that are here. What I want to say is that I've got this image right here. And it's very important to kind of, so when I frame conversations, I'm talking about this specifically here. These are largely the personas of the people who use FileMaker or really any piece of software, but definitely FileMaker. You have business owners who don't learn FileMaker, but they wave their hands around and they say they want something done. Then you have the people who are brand new to FileMaker. I say the numbers here, less than 6 months, that's an approximation. You have people who dabble in FileMaker for 5 years and they never get past this stage right here. So this is where you just build something and it basically works, right? And you're happy that it works in any way. An intermediate developer starts to worry about performance when we start talking about calculation fields, summary fields, performance issues connected. Then you're definitely this person right here. And then if you're a senior developer, you can get certified. You'd typically be certified or capable of being certified. And at the same time, you also doing lean design. So this is where you do you do a lot of scripting and optimization of code, and this is where you learn basically like the Nick Hunter lean design. If you have questions about lean design, Miles will put that link up there for you. But we have like I don't know, it's like a 10-part course where we talk about lean design. If I go to, let me see, live training here, our website. If I go to individual courses, this is lean design. It's a free course right here, and this is done by Nick Hunter. So all this stuff in here basically corresponds back to this person here. This is the stuff that you should know as a very high-level ninja. Now, not very rarely do you have someone who knows all of the things here, right? But you know, I mean, like, you either know parts of this and then the rest of it you need to learn, but they're all the subtle things that really make FileMaker very fast. So that's kind of this issue in here. So I say that there's this continuum of learning, right? And so to bring this back to Tony White, his feed here varies from the beginning person to the ninja level, and so when you look at something, if it doesn't make sense, it means that you're probably not far enough along in your progression of learning. So, for example, this one is more of an intermediate to advanced conversation. It's about the call stack. I can zoom in a little bit here, and so you can see some of this. But and not to do a deep dive into these, but to kind of go. So this is an entire little nugget. He talks about keeping track of the call stack and transferring it from script to script and managing it, right? And I generally don't write code that's as gnarly enough to need this. He says it's relatively easy. I'd have to try it and build a sample file, but it's an interesting topic. You come down here. This is probably not a beginning topic, but beginners can understand it. We talked about naming conventions. It's his suggestion about putting on at the end an extension that tells you whether it's unstored, it's stored, it's a calculation, what it is. I think this is pretty useful. This would be kind of beginners an eligible thing, right? And then it was interesting because it's like when you have an instructor and you understand things, you don't understand things. I understand all this, but then when he talks about beta names, I have no idea. I know what metadata is. I know what scripts and layouts are, but I don't understand beta names, what that means, because beta means a prototype item. So I don't know how that works to prototype. So I largely understand what he's talking about, but then the topic of it, I don't follow that one. So then he has a thing here about whatever this is, and of course this is last year, and then about it's a FileMaker tweet for them, I guess. And then here is a fun fact. He calls these fun facts, right? So I call them nuggets of knowledge, right? This is a good one here about how to make sure that an auto enter trips, right? And so you can have an auto enter calculation trip. Now, if you're at the beginning stage or an intermediate stage, the intermediate people will start to see value in this. But really, when you get the senior, as much as auto enter seems like a beginning basic skill set, it provides some senior level performance like lean design opportunities for you. So it's a very interesting area, auto enter. Nick Hunter spent probably an hour and a half on auto enter in that lean design course. So that's a really good one there. This one here is a visual one, right? And he's got the little relational kind of connectivity things here on this. And I think that might confuse people, but a big part of learning the FileMaker platform is understanding kind of, guys are very visual for the most part. Some women are visual. I've been told that my impression is that most, at least I'm a very visual person, a visual learner. My wife is not, for example. My daughters are not visual learners. My son's a visual learner. So I don't know if that's a male, female thing or whatever it is, but my wife will read text and understand it, where I draw a picture. I can read a paragraph of text and it's like, right? But if I see a picture, you'll understand it. And this is basically this has nothing to do with relationships. That's why if I was training this, I wouldn't put the little boxes in here. But what he's saying is that a layout sits atop a table occurrence, which is on a relationship graph. And that table occurrence sits on top of a source table or a base table. Once again, a terminology thing, right? And then a base table can be located either in the same file, for the most part, that's the way we do it, or you could have it through to a related file, assuming you had the credentials to that related file. So this is a mental idea that a layout is attached to a TO, and the TO is attached to a source or base table, right? And so very, very, very important. And then, of course, it's either in the same file or not. So this is another way of thinking about how things are organized in a FileMaker structure, and it's pretty interesting. And of course, then back in 2004, or not 2004, back in FileMaker 14, he developed this, and it's this kind of hierarchical idea, but it applies to every object at the time in FileMaker 14. And what's interesting about it is that I think it's really great to look at it, but I would want, before I would train you on it or provide training on it, I would want to update it for 18 or 19 because there's some new objects in 18 or 19, and you'll wonder where those are at. And if you're a brand new person, you can't tell if you're an idiot because it's not there for a reason or it's just missing, right? And so I always worry about brand new people seeing this stuff. But he's got a diagram over here that will blow your mind. If I go here, I go back to Tony White here, and you go over here to his, it's called the FileMaker 14 Objects as an ERD. And I remember talking to FileMaker about it. They were really quite blown away with it. Basically, at the time, it took every possible object in the FileMaker platform. And so it starts at the top where you have buttons and tooltips and conditional formatting, and it comes down to these items here. Then it comes down to a layout part, right? So a layout part's a body, a header, a footer, or subsummary. And then that connects to a layout. And it really shows how everything is structured together. It's really impressive. You would have to come back up here and add probably some other objects that are in here because you have references to tab panels, which are basically the same as slide panels, et cetera, et cetera. There haven't been, oh, well, there's a slide control there. Oh, so he has a slide panel over there. Maybe slides were in 14. After a while, you start to lose track of when new features were added, but I'd want to update this just to make sure it was up to date. But it's a hell of a design. And I remember FileMaker running around going, because part of the conversation of FileMaker is trying to explain to people, A, FileMaker is a deep product, and FileMaker is a deep product, and it still takes people about 7 years to learn it end to end. If you're a brand new FileMaker person and you're really learning, if you're a really brilliant person and you're naturally a great learner through osmosis, then it's less than 7 years. If you're a slow learner like I am, it might be more than 7 years, or you have to work harder to get there, right? Where are viewers today? Web viewers should have been there. If web viewers were added in FileMaker 8.5, they would be on top of a layout part, button bar, merge variable, web viewer right there. And so he put a little A5 in front of it. So for those of you asking about that, that's pretty cool. So those are in there. Yeah, I know that because what happened is that, I mean, I could tell stories all day, blow your guys' minds, but basically FileMaker, well, without me, you know, once again, I call things as they are because I see the inside and the outside of the sausage making. But the web viewer basically saved FileMaker once, and it's going to save it again. And the problem is that FileMaker, you can go back and talk to product managers. They created the web viewer. They knew that interesting things would happen. They had no idea it would save the product. I would argue that the web viewer kept FileMaker relevant because sometimes the marketing and salespeople would put together features in the product that weren't relevant to keep it modern and in the forefront. If you go to DEF CON, anyone down there in management now will tell you that's a true statement. It's not a secret. They've made features that were like, not really helping promote. That's why the cloud's, you know, so late, because no one saw the vision of what the cloud was. Well, now they have people down there visionary, and now they're desperately trying to catch up. Well, the web viewer saved FileMaker because of a little tiny company called 360works came out with a product called Super Container. And Super Container was digital document management before the people at FileMaker even knew what the hell that word was. And so it provided high performance digital document management. And it fixed this niche issue that FileMaker at the time couldn't or wouldn't solve, or they didn't identify it as something, right? And then back in FileMaker 12, they decided that, wow, Batman, this is really important. And so then they tried to start building that feature into the product. And largely as a result of that, the Super Container product has gone by the wayside. Well, in FileMaker from what I can tell, and they're talking about it, but in FileMaker 19, the web viewer makes another giant splash, but this time it's FileMaker or Claris pushing it, that capability. It's not a third party. So they continue to take the web viewer and extend it and have it do awesome, great things that they really needed to have done. So that's where that one's at. And so this is a little over. So once again, if you see this right here, so let me back up. If you're this person or this person, if I show this, just close your eyes because your head will explode. Okay. If you're this person here, you can attempt to understand it and you'll start to get it. If you're this person here, you'll go, holy crap, that's amazing. I should commit that to memory, right? So once again, the training is somewhat variable. So pretty neat stuff. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to scroll down some more. So we're now in May of last year. He doesn't do these too often, right? You know, it's like you get like 3 or 4 nuggets a year of awesomeness. Snapshot links. We have not talked about snapshot. We should do a webinar, a live stream on snapshot links. We'll make a note of that. And snapshot links by themselves are pretty straightforward. But then using the snapshot link to transfer a found set to the server, that's where it gets super interesting because PSOS doesn't transfer context. When you call a script, so you're on Pro or Go, and you want to call a script and have the server run the script, you run the script called PSOS, perform script on server. When you tell it to run, it doesn't know your context. It doesn't know what layout you're on. It doesn't know what your found set is, your sort state is, any of that stuff. Well, using a snapshot link, you can kind of recreate your context, and then that way when the server starts to run the script, it recreates your context. Then it continues from where you were, right? Really cool. So we should do a session on that. Might have Nick come and play with us on that one. Nick will like that one. That's more of a lean design one. And I had this little sample file right here. And we just took screenshots and built some things here. But one of the things in here was we talked about custom dialogues and why they suck so much, right? And so what Tony did here is he made a little image of why custom dialogues suck so much. And so I really need to stick that on here somehow and then credit you. Ask him if that's okay. I'll just like put a link to his stuff. How about that? Can I do that? Oh, this is a real basic one. So this is back if you're like that brand new person. We're in a dialogue over here. If I pop this, will let me make it bigger? Can I do that bigger? Kind of suck. Well, there it is, kind of. Let me move this out of the way. So when you're in a dialogue and you have a dialogue pop up and you have the account name right here, and it puts in a default. That default name comes from the system name that's in preferences, or you can override and put your actual name in there, right? So this is where his little nuggets of knowledge are like super beginning one. But this is a great one if you don't know this. So this is a hot tip. Card layout makes a great dialogue. Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that in that dynamic video you already saw. Miles has put that up there. It's one of the things that, you know, when we shoot new courses or updated courses, so we're shooting the 19 course, and we're kind of coming into landing on that. It'll ship more or less on time. We're going to work on the book too, but the book will be a little bit behind it. But sometimes we go back, like the audit trail section we reshot. We shot some new charting material in there. And then I shot this section on dynamic window control because we really never had a coherent conversation on the topic of the idea of if you have a layout, then how do you present information without just flipping the entire layout? Because going layout to layout to layout is easy. It's just go to layout. But if you want to keep it there and then have stuff come on the screen and do stuff and then go off, that's easy. But to do it cross-platform so it works on Pro, Go, and WebDirect is tricky. And so that's where we worked on coming up with the things that you can use. And we did it live stream, but it's better in the training because it's animated. So when you'll see the recorded training, for those of you who have the subscription, then you will see how it's animated. It's much better. In fact, I just approved the video today on it. It's a 16-minute video. It's really, really great. Cool. What is a card layout? So on the outside chance that Imag is not toying with me, and he actually asked the question, a card style window, if I come back to FileMaker, am I hiding it? Where'd the window go? Is it here? No. Here? No. Where'd it go? FileMaker? Is it hiding? Man, I must have hidden it. That's a browser. Hide that. It's down there in the bottom right. I see it hiding under my face. Here it is. So if I go to the card, did I do it in here? Yeah, here's the card style window here. So the card style window, these are all different kinds of floating windows that pop up, that float. That's a standard document window, which is when you say new window, that's a document window, okay? The floating window is one like I'm floating over here, so I can work back here. I can do stuff, but my window is floating above, like the little video right here. Dialog window is a modal. Once again, we measure the definition of modal. Up at the front, we define what that is. Card style window is, once again, where you kind of gray out a section around it and you put the card in here, then you force people to interact with this, press a button or something. So it's modal, but it's really nice and modern and pretty, and it looks great. As opposed to the custom dialog, which is the very first creation of something like this. It throws this up there, and so it's good for like a diagnostic thing or a little short message, like, hey, you have no records in the found set, cancel or continue, something like that. It's fine, but it has all these limitations, and this is the best graphic I've ever seen for the limitation on it. So that is our session on dynamic window. I have made layouts specifically to be pop-up dialogues with buttons on them. Yeah, so you use it's the same thing. You just change the layout type. Once again, if I come back over here to the card style dialog over here, that's the slide control, this one. So these are all basically could call the same script more or less. What happens is if you go into script workspace and you pop this, each of these are different because when you pop the dialog right here, you select the kind of 4. So those 4 there match these 4 here. The top 3 are basically older, I don't want to say out of date, but they have limited utility. They absolutely don't work as you would hope they would in Go and WebDirect. The card is designed to work seamlessly all the way across all 3 clients and be beautiful. And so that's the card. Once again, the card doesn't work great with WebDirect in 18 and 19. It's much better. So once again, if you already have the layout created, so if you come over here, so this is the card. The card is actually another layout. So when you run a card style window, it's actually leaving your base window, and it's popping in front of it here, it's popping the little cat. So you have the window, the cat's in front, that's another layout that's in front. Now, there are hacks for this. Nick Hunter has hacked it to where because it's on here and it's grayed out, but you could actually hack it and have it display off the side or all sorts of weird stuff. So for every tool that we show, there are people who take it to the extreme and they hack it. Nick Hunter, do you hear me? I said hack it because you're a hack. He hacks everything. And when I tell him he hacks it, he doesn't believe me. So every time I see him, he does something stupid like this, I say, oh, you hacked it, right? So just to rile him up because he hates it. He says, it's not a hack. And I say, yes, it's a hack. So anyway, I just did that. I'm gonna get, my message here is gonna, explode here with Nick conversation, I'm sure. So questions, and then once again, of course, you folks are all welcome to visit Tony White and worship him endlessly because he definitely deserves it. He's quite good with that. So here's some more Tony Whiteness. Tony Whiteness. I got to be careful with that. Okay, so here's folder organization. This brings up a good topic. I was thinking about this today, and so Tony's like, hey, you should put different sections and different things. And you have to decide what you like. But from my perspective, there's 2 ways of really organizing scripts. You can organize scripts by what they do. And if your brain works that way, it's fine. I have one core internal system where we organize them that way, like this, like it's so all the control or all the navigation control for all the layouts is stuffed into like the 130 folder here, right? That's what he's implying. In starting point, we went a different way because people think about modules, they don't think about features. So they go to the module first, then they look for the features. So what we have is we have a contacts folder, right? So if I go to starting point, it's basically the same idea, but the question is, how do you delineate and break down the items in your stuff, right? So if you come over here to starting point, you come over here, you go to script workspace. What we have, if I turn that off, so we have preferences, and then we have the different modules. So here's the accounts module, right? Or the contacts module, right? And then you open that up. And then within that, you have processes, navigation. The email menu is such a big system that has a bunch of pieces in here. So we break down the areas within the module, but people, in my experience, tend to think about, okay, I'm going to work on scripts in the context section. So they come into here and they're looking for contacts first and then something else second. They're not looking for navigation first. That's my general impression. But I have built the solutions both ways, and I can tell you my brain tends to go back to this better. With this organization is just based upon the feature. So all the exports in one area, all the navigation in one area, all the process control or reporting in another area, all the printing in another area. And so just how your brain works, build it the way you want. FileMaker's flexible. There's no right or wrong. The question you have to ask yourself is, one, are you the sole developer of the solution? And if you get hit by a bus, who's going to work on it after you're gone? And have you made it reasonably easy for that person to follow in your footsteps, right? And that's why you comment scripts. That's why you're logical. That's why you use anchor buoy so people can follow behind you, and you don't give them this nasty spider mess of scripts or relationships. So, yeah, script folder by table. Yeah, well, that would be almost over here with the same idea here because you have different tables here, right? So, yeah, and that's good because what we do, because you get into some of these tables that are support tables. People call them, it's a join table. I hate the word join table, but they are the line items, say, of an invoice or the messages or the interactions from a user. And so really, people don't think, oh, there's a module for line items or whatever. So what we end up doing is specifically layouts, but also scripts that service those. We will create a maintenance area. Somewhere there will be a maintenance section, wherever it happens to be in here. I don't see it at the moment. And you will create that and drop it in there. I know in the layout management, we definitely do that. So you have, once again, you have organized in a very similar sort of way, right? So you got your contacts and your various items. And then we have a maintenance set of layouts. These are all the supporting join tables or the line item, various little supporting layouts that have no interface to them. There's black and white because you'll need some of those, right? So, or you'll need to or you want to run a script and not fire off any script triggers, right? That's a classic. So you put script triggers everywhere. They're like little landmines you step on, they blow you up. And so what you do is that you want to do your work without script triggers. So you create a set of layouts with no interface, with no script triggers on them. And then when your script is running, you don't run the basic contacts up here. You don't run in here because look at the script triggers are all in these things, right? You come down here and you come down to like contacts down in here somewhere. If there's one in here, there's a contacts down there, right? Mass creation that has no script trigger. So you could go in there and do your script triggery work with, or do your scripting and run your script without worrying that you're going to detonate some process by accident. So maintenance layouts are good for that. So today is like this eclectic day of crap that's going everywhere. A way of adjusting it a little bit. Okay, questions before we kind of wrap up for the day. So I want to thank Tony White for being the great victim that he always is. He is he creates a lot of great content. It's little, like I said, little nuggets. He calls them FileMaker fun fiction or facts or fun. I've got to be careful with my F's there because I have creative language and I don't want to get censored by YouTube. So FileMaker fun facts, I think is what they are. So once again, I'm going to end a wrap up here by saying that this broadcast is sponsored by fmtraining.tv. If you want to support this channel and help us bring to you live daily training and help us pay for the infrastructure and to keep the lights on and all that kind of stuff, feel free to make sure that you have a current subscription to our training. Recommend either the complete training here or just the video only training. If you would like $50 off of these prices, send an email to support@RC Consulting, and we will make sure that you get a coupon. For those of you, a lot of you have seen this, although Imag, most of the people here have this. Some of you are lurking like little sharks in the water, little fins. I mean, when I'm sitting here talking, I'm talking to 5 people here, and I see a shark fin go by. It's like, what the hell is that? It's like, what, lurking person. They don't say anything, but they're just kind of sitting there watching. But if you lurkers want to support the channel, definitely get the training. It really helps us fund the budget and keep this going. Because ask how many other FileMaker consultancies do training every week, and then ask them how many do training every day. I think you're going to have a really short list. So that's how you do that. Awesome. That's right there. So I'm going to come over on this computer. You can't see me over here. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to look at the link over here. Does it work? Okay, it pops it. Is it a PDF or is it destructions? So he has some. So it's not really PDF. It's kind of like because he makes these. They're like cards, like an 8.5 by 11 card. It's like you could laminate it and flip it around, but that's what those other ones are. All right, so we will have to cut this one open and have a conversation about this. It's basically the fastest way to convert from a classic theme to a modern theme. Once again, we've discussed that classic themes specifically have problems with performance with older computers. The classic theme is the theme that was used, I'm going to use that term loosely, from FileMaker 11 and previous. And so if you built a solution in 11 or previously and you moved it to anything newer than 11, then at the top of the layout, if you go into FileMaker, you will see up here, you go to layout mode, you'll see that the theme is right here. It says RCC Minimalist. So that would say classic right there. That means your theme is very fat, overweight, it needs to go on a diet. And this right here should be a way to, the most efficient way of converting that, right? With the minimum number of steps. So it'd be a good conversation to have. In the case of starting point, we created our own theme, but it was based upon Vibrant or whatever it was. And so we have our own theme there. Basically, the idea is to make it look the way it looked before, but have half the weight in kilobytes or megabytes. A lot of layouts, like this layout right here to send down, if it was classic, we measured it, was about 900K to 1 megabyte to send this down to one person. Never mind the data, just the structure and the objects on the layout. When we changed it to a custom theme, we call custom themes, shared styles, the weight went down by half. So if you're moving half the amount of data, then it's conceivable that your performance will double. It could be faster than double or slower than double, but you're moving half the data. So if you're on a 2G or 3G network or even a 4G that's a little bit busy, then you'll notice that. So anyway, cool. So I think we'll go back and revisit that at some point. I'm going to click over here. I know Miles has had to jump off. He has a coaching session. A lot of the engineers here are busy doing things. We do welcome and say thank you to all the hardworking RCC FileMaker coaches that are coaching right now. So if you need coaching help, you want help one-on-one at a discounted price, feel free to email like half off the discounted price of our developer rates. You can get FileMaker coaching one-on-one. Just email support@rcconsulting.com. And they'll even give you a free 1-hour coaching session. You can check it out. So with that, Tony White. Yeah, so he's got a video where he talks about his process. Starts at 54 minutes. We'll make sure we repost that link as well. So that's it for today. I appreciate everyone.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.